So Bob Wankel covers the Phillies, but he's a great baseball guy, just in general, just a good baseball guy. So I wanted to bring him into this conversation just to kind of get his thoughts on it. We talked to Tim Kirkchin earlier, and I kind of knew the way Kirkchin was going to go because I heard him last night saying, look, there's no way they should have taken Snell out of that game. But I want to take it from a couple different angles here. By the way, some more text messages coming in. 609-403-0973. Hunter, take out analytics. Are you taking Snell out from your eye test?
Why would I take out analytics if I'm the Rays? That's what they do. So that would never be a scenario.
He just asked you a simple question.
Okay,
You're trying to trump it and answer it a different answer.
Based off of last night's circumstances and that circumstance are two different scenarios.
Right, so I think he's just asking you, if you're taking out the Rays and you are just going eye test, are you taking Snell out?
No, I am not.
All right.
But if I'm factoring the Rays and who they are and their identity.
That's a different question than what he asked.
Right. Then, yes, I would take him out. But based off that question, I would not take him out.
Bob Wankel, what would you have done last night? You're a great baseball man.
What's up, guys? How we doing? It was absolutely insane to take him out of that game last night. You know, I respect analytics. I respect the numbers. And you have to tip your cap to the Rays and what they've built there. They're one of the most successful franchises year in, year out in baseball with such a limited payroll. But you know, it's not just that he was effective. It's not that he was dancing in and out of trouble. I mean, you watched his stuff last night, Blake Snell, and he was outstanding. I mean, that was his best performance of the season. And the way that the ball was exploding out of his hand, to take him out after two hits and what looked like kind of an innocuous single in that spot was baffling to me. I don't care what the numbers say. I respect that, you know, they are one of the more analytically driven teams in baseball. I think by and large, it's bad for the sport and the actual product in terms of consuming it, but I believe that it's the smart way to build a baseball team. But I just don't know how you could watch him, watch his stuff, watch how effective he was in such a high-stakes, high-leverage spot with the season on the line and make that move. It was unfathomable to me.
One of the biggest problems, like, I like the Rays and I appreciate what they do, but that doesn't mean I have to agree with them all the time. And I just wish they would deviate from the script on certain guys. Like, to me, Blake Snell has earned the right or the opportunity. He's not even given the opportunity. That people are like, well, they do it all year to him. If Snell doesn't earn that opportunity, like, something's wrong with your plan to me. And I like their plan because I understand their restraints, but shouldn't they have, like, you can't treat Michael Jordan the same way you treat John Paxton. You can't treat Snell the same way you treat Yarbrough.
I agree with you. And the thing that I wondered as soon as they made the move, I mean, you obviously saw Blake Snell's reaction when Cash was coming out to the mound, but you're in a tight game. You feel confident that the players on the field feel confident in the guy that's dealing at that point. And they make that move, and you know, if you're a baseball player, I mean, I think that if you're on the Rays or you're part of that organization, you know what they do. You know that their philosophies have been successful, and there is a buy-in to that, right? Like, I think if you're having success, you're going to be more inclined to buy into these types of decisions. But I think in that spot last night, with the stakes being what they were, it's almost impossible from a human standpoint, from the human element, not to see the air go out of the balloon a little bit there. And maybe not for the relievers that come in, but just the rest of the team on that field saying, that was our chance. I can't believe we're making this move. Everything goes wrong right away. And it was almost just like, how do you come back from that? And so I just think from the psychological aspect of it, it was kind of a crazy move. And I think that in that particular situation, we're not talking about using analytics over 162 games or even over 60 games. We're talking about in that moment with your season on the line, having your best arm, who's dealing, who's cruising, hasn't thrown that many pitches. I just thought that when you evaluate that situation in its entirety, that it was insane. It was an absolutely insane decision.
I'm not disagreeing with the other side of things that you and Gil are on. I actually see both sides. So if Blake Snell was staying out there, I'm not going to sit here and criticize them for going against their philosophy. But while I look at the other side, I see an organization that went 6 games into the World Series, had a phenomenal regular season. They battle against the Yankees and Red Sox every single year. So for them to do that alone is impressive. They beat the Yankees, the run that they went on to this point. They got to Game 6 of the World Series by doing this. So if they fail doing this in Game 6, then you live and die by that. You live and die on that decision because that is what got you to this scenario. It's unfortunate. I didn't want it to see it happen like that. Game 2, they did the same exact thing, and it worked, and nobody said a peep about it. Yet now, because it's a big situation, which I get the criticism, I can't knock them for going with their identity.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I understand that. And like I said, this is what they do. This is who they are, and they've had a lot of success doing it. And I am in agreement with you to that end. I think what's really interesting, beyond just the decision and the ramifications of Game 6 and determining a champion, is that it was almost like a referendum on analytics last night. You were on Twitter, and I know that you guys are very active on social media. You could see a lot of like the old guard people that hate analytics and hate the way that the game is played now said, see, I told you. And, I don't think that that's fair either because, you see how teams are able to find extra value and extract every last bit of talent out of the money and in a lot of cases, limited money some of these teams are spending. But I will say this. Like, did you enjoy, from an aesthetic standpoint, did you enjoy watching the World Series? Because I love baseball. I truly do. And I think that the Rays are fascinating from an observer standpoint of just what they've been able to do with the limited resources financially and the way that they've been able to develop players and get guys like Randy Arozarena from seemingly nothing trades. And that's great. But, from an actual enjoyment, from a consumption of the game standpoint, I don't find it to be particularly palatable. And I miss baseball where hitters would hook balls down the line and find gaps and more in-play action. And I just feel like watching this game right now, watching this sport right now as a baseball guy, it's not as fun to watch. It's home run or bust. It's strikeout or home run. And I just feel like baseball is reaching a breaking point where it's got to decide what it wants to be. And I think that Major League Baseball and Rob Manfred and even people, Tony Clark and the MLBPA, I think that they know it, but I just don't know what the clear fix is. And so I watched the series and I consumed it and said, these are two vastly different teams. Both are analytically driven to an extent, but in terms of financial resources, and that part of it was intriguing. But the on-field action I thought was lackluster. And I wonder how you two feel about it.
Well, I'm definitely the outlier. I'm an outlier in this situation because I agree with you that it's not as fun as maybe it once was, but I am more into the analytics than I ever have been in my entire life, and I am so intrigued by these decisions, and I'm so interested on why these organizations do what they do. So I am enjoying it still. While I understand it's not as action-packed as it once was, I'm still embracing it and enjoying it for what it is now. So I am, but I understand and comprehend that, I'm on the outside looking in that conversation. So that does tell you that baseball is having a problem.
I would say this too, Bob. I mean, you coach baseball, I coach baseball, and I say I would rather sit and watch a high school baseball game. And people are like, why? And I'm like, because if someone hits a home run, it's a rarity. You're just like, wow, this kid just, the whole home run strikeout thing has just really, and I love the strategy. I hate the DH. I like the strategy involved. I heard somebody, I think it was Teixeira, throw out today that the way these games are going, that they should maybe limit it to, hey, every game you get 5 pitchers in a game. That's it. You got to strategically decide when you want to use those 5 pitchers, and that's it. The strategy of the game has just been yanked away. So I'm with you where I just don't enjoy watching a baseball game, and I love it. I played it. I still coach it, and I just do not like the game as much as I used to.
Yeah, and I say that as a guy that watched every inning of the World Series, and I write for Crossing Broad. I do Phillies content, but I wasn't required to produce content about the World Series. I watched it because I love baseball, but it does miss something for me right now, and I agree. I know you guys are in the Shore area there, so you're telling me you'd rather go watch St. Augustine and Mainland square off than Rays and Dodgers? Is that what you're telling me, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that it's a game. Like there's a gapper, there's a stolen base, there's somebody puts a bunt down. Like there's still some purity.
Oh, whoa! You saw
game.
Some bunts happening. You saw some small ball in this series.
I missed a Tuesday night game. I missed one of those games. But no, I mean, there is a lot. But that just to me. Snell's my best guy. The guy's won a Cy Young. He's been my best pitcher. He should get treated differently, and that's what Bob. I don't have a problem if they. It's like with the Phillies. There's a game this year they took Wheeler out, and it's like, dude, He's the best guy you got. You're not handing it over, and I know the Rays are different. Their bullpen is their strength, but certain guys you just treat differently. And I feel like if you're going to treat Snell and Morton the same way you treat Yarbrough and, Glass now to some extent, I think you're basically capping yourself off. Like, you're hitting a ceiling.
And the other part of it is, too, if you're looking at Snell, I mean, no high-stress innings. Everything was low stress last night for him. He was never in trouble. And I think that that's a consideration that you have to look at as well. And the other part of it I think that you have to look at is, they have a great bullpen. All right, but had they been particularly effective in that series? I mean, there were certain guys that they went to last night in that game that just had not pitched all that well. And I think that you also have to kind of ride a hot hand, So while that bullpen was outstanding throughout the course of the year for them, and they had their moments in the postseason as well, it wasn't like it was lights out. Like, if you go back to 2015, remember the Kansas City Royals when they played the Mets in the World Series? Like, you could get to the sixth inning with that team, and as hot as that bullpen was in the postseason, the game was over after the sixth. The way that the Rays relievers have been working here, especially in the latter part of the postseason, it was a little bit of a rocky show for them. So I just look at it, and I look at how Snell was throwing the baseball. I look at the fact that some of the relievers weren't throwing all that well for Tampa. It was a curious decision to me, and it's a shame because Kevin Cash is a good manager, and he's obviously going to take a lot of heat for this, and it's not all on him, but it was unfortunate to see it unfold like that.
And Bob, that's another thing is that Anderson said after the game that he was fatigued and that he was running down, and that he had given up a run in 7 straight games. At what point does the analytics sheet need to change? Like, to where you say, all right, this worked for us all year long, but this guy is hitting a little bump in the wall and that's another thing. This worked over.
He was basically Brandon Workman, by the time the World Series rolled around, I mean, that's what he was giving. He was giving up a run every appearance.
Every single appearance. And this worked over a 60-game season. Can you bring relievers in every night of the week in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th inning? I don't know.
They've done that, though, over the last handful of seasons.
To this extent,
90 wins. They've been doing this.
Well, Snell has pitched more than 7 innings in years past. So they're not doing it every single time.
Well, I'm just saying, over 162, they have a track record of utilizing their bullpen very heavily.
You know who really kind of killed them in this series, and it's going to kind of fly under the radar, and it's a guy I like who's had some success here, and he seems like he's figuring it out, but Tyler Glasnow, who he checks every box from an analytics standpoint, huge fastball, big-time spin rate. He just wasn't very good in this series. I mean, you look at his stuff, and they never got length out of him. He wasn't particularly effective. And it's a shame because if he pitches better, they probably don't have to compromise their bullpen quite as much, and maybe you have a different result. And he's a guy I really like, but he did not show up for them in this series.
Yeah, he definitely struggled. But with the whole analytics conversation, it's, you look at Friedman, who came over from the Rays. Like, that's a big storyline in this. So he's clearly using very similar data with a team that has way more money to spend and a lot more talent. So the Dodgers used just as much analytics, maybe a little bit shy of what the Rays were using, but they were using just as much. They pitched 2 bullpen games, and one was a closeout game. Like, people who hate analytics are going, and this is just the way I see it, is going after that one decision, but not valuing the decisions that actually worked out with analytics as well in the same playoff run and in the same series.
Yeah, I hear you. If you can blend analytics and be an analytically driven team and spend what the Dodgers spend and develop players the way that the Dodgers develop players, then, I mean, this is why they're in the playoffs every year. This is why they've won the division 8 straight years. This is why they've been knocking on the doorstep of a World Series title in, basically 4 of the last 5 years. So, I mean, that is the gold standard. That's the perfect blend right there. And I think that that's what a lot of organizations aspire to be. Obviously, they're not going to have quite the same capital as a team like LA will, but they are across the board a fantastic organization. And for the Rays to do what they were able to do this season and almost take them the distance, you want to see a Game 7. A lot of people root for the underdog there and didn't love the final result. But, you say, hey, this probably played out the way that it was supposed to.
And you could make an argument, just to throw this out there, that if Severino and Paxton are healthy, the Rays aren't in Game 6 of the World Series. They could have lost to the Yankees in that series. The Yankees were really beat up in the pitching staff that kind of took them off their script as well. So, Bob, you obviously cover the Phillies for Crossing Broad. Let's get a couple quick Phillies thoughts from you. Now the offseason's here. So how are we feeling about the possibilities of JT Realmuto returning at this point?
Man, we've been talking about this when I'm on, right? And it seems like every time we talk, it's a different answer. You know, you're reading now that JT Realmuto prefers to stay in Philadelphia. You saw that he was out at dinner with the Harpers over the weekend, and it was on Kay Harper's Instagram. And listen, he is not going to say that he does not want to return to Philadelphia, but the fact that he has intimated that he would like to or prefers to come back here really doesn't mean anything. It's going to come down to money. And I know that you two may have seen the reports that he's not thrilled or keen, I believe was the exact wording, on the idea of playing in New York. That all may be true, but will the Phillies step up? And I just don't know. When you listen to John Middleton speak, almost a month ago now, when he fired Matt Klentak, I got to be honest with you. I don't know that they're going to meet his contract demands. I know that there's an intense amount of pressure on this team to do it, both internally from some of the people in the clubhouse, to the fans, to the media. But I don't know. It sure felt to me like John Middleton was laying the groundwork for, we are not going to go all in for a 30-year-old catcher, and I really don't know. I think a lot of this is going to depend on the economics and what ownerships say, hey, we want to make a splash. We're not worried about the revenue that we lost over the past season, which was significant. Nobody really wants to admit that or, concede that. If you ask for a percentage, I guess this is a long-winded way of me telling you, I think that there's roughly a 30 to 40% chance that JT Realmuto is back. I don't think it's an impossibility or a long shot, but I don't expect it either.
DD, it's like there's not a whole heck of a lot of they got to bring him back. But, I mean, I guess they could play Segura there, and then you got Bryson Stott about a year or two away. But is DD a priority?
He should be, especially if you're not going to re-sign JT Realmuto. I don't see any scenario where Realmuto comes back and Gregorius comes back. I think that's just way too much money for guys that are, creeping up there in age a little bit. And Middleton talked a little bit about how there has to be more of an emphasis on developing players and not trying to solve all of your issues through the free agent market. And I believe that. I think that's true. So I don't expect them to go out and get both guys. If they don't sign JT Realmuto, I would be stunned if they did not retain Gregorius, who wants to be here. And he was everything that the Phillies could have hoped for and more. And frankly, I just think it depends on philosophically what the Phillies want to be this year. Do they want to be a contender? Do they expect do they want to be a wild card contender? Do they want to try to compete in the division? I don't think that this is an all-in situation, which is insane considering the market, the fact that this is a team that hasn't made the postseason now in 9 years. They signed Bryce Harper. They went out and got Zach Wheeler. But this team has so many holes that I don't believe that they can do any one or two things to put them in legitimate contention over a 162-game schedule with the Atlanta Braves. The Braves are miles and miles ahead of the Phillies. So what quick fix can the Phillies come up with to bridge that gap? I just don't believe it's there, frankly. So I think that the Phillies have to stay competitive, though. It's not a tear-down situation. So to me, signing Gregorius does make some sense, especially if they don't do a deal with Realmuto.
Now, is there a big splash free agent that maybe appeals to you that, I know Trevor Bauer is a starting pitcher that's available. There's a couple other starters, but would you go down that road on top or ahead of a Realmuto and say, you know what, he's a catcher, he's 30, but if you go out and get a pitcher like that, is that something that's appealing?
I think that Realmuto still has to be the priority because of the impact in the clubhouse, and you have guys like Bryce Harper, and don't think for 1 second that keeping Bryce Harper happy matters. I mean, he's your right fielder. He's not your general manager, right? But I do think that he has so much clout and so much influence in that clubhouse that you should try to appease him. That being said, a guy like Trevor Bauer he likes to sign these short-term deals. If you could go get a guy like Trevor Bauer for 1 to 2 years and pair him at the top of your rotation with Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler, I mean, now you're cooking a little bit, right? You have quite a formidable rotation at that point. I don't think that's likely for a lot of reasons. A guy that I like, just to not dive too deeply into the free agent market, but I really like Kevin Gausman. He'll be 30 in January. He was really good through 10 starts with the Giants last year. He started to really figure some things out, pitched extremely well with them. Some of the advanced metrics, here you go, analytics, kind of suggest that he's turning a corner and that we may not have seen the best of him yet. So I know that he's expressed some interest in staying with the Giants, but that would be a lesser-known, maybe second-tier starting pitcher that wouldn't cost quite as much money per year that the Phillies could have some interest in. Because I do think, as much of a mess as the bullpen is, and as much as the issues with Real Muto and Gregorius are going to kind of take the headlines this offseason, the Phillies have to get more stability in their starting rotation. They just have to.
Well, they have and they need some bullpen help. This just in. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad covers the Phillies. Great baseball, man. Good conversation on the baseball, and he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Bob, thanks so much, man.
Guys, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Yes, we will, as Phillies offseason going to be an interesting one.